for people who've got a substantial shop with substantial labor force there.
Thanks. So, Rick Pearson, go ahead. You're muted. There you go.
Yep. So it was unique finding that, and we had done a little bit of commercial flooring for churches, but we found that the church industry is a very lucrative industry right now. A lot of the churches wanted to do creative environments for kid areas, and so they're doing all kinds of some scenic stuff, some custom flooring and stuff like that, things you would never think of. So it really became kind of like Rob said, you got to get outside that box, and not just small outside. I mean, there's a big avenue out there across the board in so many markets. It's really kind of just takes you to think way, way, way beyond what we normally do. So it was unique to find that.
Thanks, Rick. So since Mark, you were one of the last people to join, I'm going to pick on you. So what's your take on it, Mark?
Thanks. Well, yeah, I can mirror what everybody else has kind of said. Alternate revenue streams, obviously, during this last 7 months have been important to have. Some folks had them already. Some folks were in the beginning stages of having, perhaps an environment side of the business, or maybe more digital marketing support services, things like that for clients. So we were probably in that middle of the road ground where we were only recently delving into environments, because I've only recently had a custom shop in my company, for example, for the last 3 years. And I think without that and without some other pivots, going into, we're actually doing disinfection and hygiene products, and most everybody's doing a lot of that too. That's been important to be part of our mix at this point. And as Rick said, we're finding, churches, schools, mostly private schools, seem to have a little bit better cash flow or budget for doing some of these things that folks are talking about. So that's been somewhat helpful. We're not quite there yet, but it's kept the lights on for 4 or 5 months.
So, we look at the obvious things like revenue sources and diversifying and looking at, pivoting to product lines outside of our normal comfort zone. What have you learned about your businesses, internally, the way you're structured, or I was curious about that. Carla, any? I was going to pick on you sooner or later.
That's okay. That's okay. I was ready for it. I was actually pondering that, and it's everything that everyone's saying is we've all had to get creative. We pivoted very quickly. I had a client that was going to a National Restaurant Show, and the show canceled. Obviously, it was in May, and they just spent $100,000 on their booth, and I'm like, I'm not giving that money back. What are we going to do to get around that? So we kind of pivoted, and I pitched it to the client that how about if we take the trade show to your audience? So she says, I love it. Let's see what we can do. We literally took her booth and we made our warehouse look like a trade show, and pipe and drape, extra lights, had internet, all that stuff, so they could get all their equipment in. They brought all their equipment in, and we set all of it up, and we ran webinars, go-to meetings from our warehouse, and they had 200 people show up to their webinar. And you guys know, most clients, they're not able to talk to 200 people on the show floor. It's almost impossible to talk to that many people. So they invited 500, 300 registered, 200 stayed on the call for the entire time. They did the whole interacting, they did all the surveying through it, and they landed a bunch of a bunch of deals by doing it. So at that point we said, you know, we probably can make money doing this. And so we started hitting all of our clients and offering that to them to set up their booth and take the trade show to their audience. And it did make a difference. So I highly recommend you guys look at doing that. We gave ours a name. I've got a website for it. We made that happen very quickly. And it's working. It's nowhere the revenue we get from doing trade show, building new exhibits and stuff, because there's none of that happening. But it's enough to help keep some of the lights on and make it happen. You know, we've kind of expanded that a little bit. We turned our showroom into a studio. So clients that have new products to pitch and they really don't have a lot of revenue to hire big giant companies to come in and do some of their videos for them. We've set up the showroom as a studio, and they're bringing stuff in here, and we work with a team that I'm running all the video through me, so that I at least have one, revenue, and two, I can make some money on it. And we're project managing it and helping clients with their virtual. And it's kind of difficult to say, yeah, we had to jump into the virtual pond, but we had to. We had to be a resource for our clients in order to help them stay viable, and it helps us stay viable. So just trying to position ourselves that we can help you with it, because what I'm doing is I'm correlating the virtual show to what we do every day, and we live and breathe it. You know, what are the similarities in that we can take and cross over? So I'm writing papers, I'm doing blogs and sharing with them as far as things that, here's how it works on your regular shows, here's how it's going to work in your virtual show. And people are responding to that piece of it because they're all afraid. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but a lot of people are afraid of virtual shows. They're not being done very well. You know, a lot of the associations are having to scramble to make it happen, and they're not sure what they're even doing. And they're less of a resource for our clients when it comes to helping them. So what I've tried to do is educate myself, and I can talk enough BS to get myself into the door to help them with that piece. And now I get to charge them consultation fee, right, to help them with it. So it's those kind of things that we're looking at. But I'm telling you, if you have a showroom and you can pivot it to change it up to do video, I'm sure all of you guys know video. We probably could do the video ourselves internally, but I just don't feel we have the team in place. I will have the team in place going forward, right? So when we start looking, what do we need? I need a different kind of staff within my creative department that has the ability to do that, because we all know that virtual is not going to go away, and it is going to become part of what we do. So if I can do a booth for someone physically and then be able to say, hey, but I can help you with the virtual piece too, you know, I think we're all going to have to start pivoting that direction, because I just don't think it's going to go away.
So obviously your client, and I'm going to paraphrase a question from Rob, that your client was much more comfortable with a video presentation than a rendering of a virtual booth. They felt like that was a stronger presence and more effective way to market the product.
Yeah, well, and they did their own event. And I think that's the biggest thing. People are so locked into, and if you guys have talked to salespeople, owners, if you've talked to your clients, they'll say, oh, that's going virtual, we're just going to do that. And I'm like going, oh, God, because we all know what they look like. So what I'm telling clients that they need to look at doing is creating their own landing page on their website. They need to be inviting people, all this marketing stuff that you would think marketing people would know, but they don't, because this is all new to them as well. So it's inviting people to their booth space. If it's virtual, they're not doing that, having a landing page and creating what you guys are offering with the whole 3D interactive, that it's on that landing page. So now they can set up one-on-one appointments with people. Because after a client does a virtual, I'm actually calling them and talking to them. I want to find out what their experience was, what were their pain points, because I'm trying to find solutions to those pain points for them, which helps, because again, it helps me with writing stuff for them. And I also can try and help them find a solution. Because again, when shows start back up, we have to make ourselves viable to them, that they know we're here. And I've had to educate myself. I'm old, and I've had to learn, virtual, and it's like, what? I start everything with, I'm a face-to-face girl. And so this is new world. So that's why I said I'm going back to the correlation between virtual and face-to-face. And clients are when after they tell me their pain points with a virtual, I'm able to offer a solution to them, right?
Okay.
Talking about the landing page, that helps.
One thing I would add to that, just to beef up what you're saying, Carla, is, we're, Katina and Kim and myself, we're involved in these presentations daily. And so I've started taking about the last 3.5, 4 weeks, I've been taking a little moment in each one of those to ask the question of where they have found their best ROI, all right, since they started going down this road. And easily 8 out of 10 at a minimum have said, I found more use in my own event created, if you will, landing page, however that happens, or like what you're doing in your warehouse, than they have gotten out of the actual virtual.
You're right. You're
And so
exactly right.
it becomes a tool that they can use in that through those venues. Don't get me wrong. So not casting any shade that direction at all, but it's all of us needing to make sure that we can facilitate that opportunity for end clients to create their own unique little events or meetings or whatever it is as one-offs, and they could do those weekly. They could do them daily if they wanted to use them for sales meetings, but by far that has been the lion's share of the response we've heard too.
I agree, because it gives them more control over content. They can invite who they want to invite. And the one thing that the one client came in, we kind of planned it to where they brought all their equipment in. They did demos and did video. This was almost like a 2-week show, and to where they brought video, all their equipment in. We had it all running, so they brought their team over and did demos just as they would at the show, and they videotaped all of that. And now they have video to push out on media, right? So, and that's stuff that they didn't have, and that's stuff that they would have. There's no way they would have been controlled if they tried to do those videos at the show. We know how noisy it is. It's not the same quality. So we set up that studio and it worked perfectly for them. So I just think it's a great tool for them. Again, making yourself viable to your clients. And another one that we just found, I happened upon it, and I think you guys will appreciate this. We've all been on these Zoom meetings, and we all have diverse backgrounds, and when backgrounds literally are backgrounds. And what we did our show, and so all these people, they saw what we're doing, because our new product line is called Vid Expo, and it was a lot of salespeople coming up to me going, man, I can't do these virtual meetings are killing me with clients. And I've kind of found a little pocket there that I'm squeezing into that's helping salespeople at how to do their virtual meetings with their clients better. And I've got a whole little silly package going, with a banner stand and a microphone and my lift. I got my laptop up and got a light in here, got my little halo light, and I'm selling it as a package. But I'm giving them tools also that tells them better ways to do their meetings, right? Like sending agendas ahead of time and putting either that your camera is going to be on. Just they're like the light bulb goes off. They're going, what? So again, it's not a big dollar amount. It's $500, but it's $500, 10 times. I'll take that,
Sure.
Right. I know it sounds crazy. Right now, I'll take that $5,000.
We'll take anything we can get, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's really, Tom, I probably answered both the questions that you threw out there, but I'm eager to share that kind of information because I'll try anything, right? I mean, if I got to sing and dance on the corner, I'll do it. I don't know if I pay for that, but I'll do it if I have to do it. But
I would pay to see that.
yes, and and I don't have to have alcohol to do that. So, yeah.
All right. Before we move on from this, I was curious if other, besides the obvious that I was talking about, at Classic, we did something different. We changed banks during this whole thing because we determined that our banking relationship wasn't great, and we needed a stronger banking relationship. And so Kevin and the management team moved moved our banking to someone else we felt would be more supportive during this whole thing. And so, you know, that's what we learned during this, that we needed internally a better banking, relationship. I was curious if anything else, if anybody looked at that avenue, or was that something that anybody considered, you know, from an ownership standpoint, obviously, you know, somebody like Joel or Marty? Go ahead, Marty. Oh, you're still muted, Marty, even though it's saying you're not muted. Can you put up little cue cards and? All right, right now, try it now. Well, while you're figuring it out, Marty, Joel, why don't you jump in? I was just kind of curious from your standpoint, you know, from either restructuring or looking at those type of relationships.
Yeah, we had a similar situation where the bank that we had got bought out. So we applied for our PPP loan through a bank that we didn't even know. That person that was our account rep left. And we were feeling like that we weren't getting any TLC at all, you know. So we went out to 3 banks, felt like we were talking to the wall, to be honest with you. And in the last week, they have all called us back. You know, they laughed and said, yeah, you know, when you need us, we don't want you. And when we need you, you don't want us, kind of thing. But magically, they have all come back, and it are, you know, we haven't gotten too far down the road, but they're all viable. We have asked for, you know, a lot, and we didn't scare them away, you know. So I think if you have a solid history, they understand that our industry is pretty devastated. And I think they're looking for good people to bring in. You know, I think they're looking at it as an opportunity to grow as well. So I think that's a fantastic point that you guys brought up, and we're living it, and I think we're going to end up in a better place because of it. So
yeah, thanks.
Laura, you had your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
One thing that happened to us, and I think it's something that is a cause for sharing, is, you know, after coming out of a rough time, we were finally in January having like the month of our life, and probably better than I had in 30 years in this business. And all of a sudden I'm out on the road, and we had a client pay us $50,000 on American Express, and it went through our First Data merchant account. First Data captured the money and wouldn't return phone calls, put us into a risk department, and didn't put the money in to our bank account. We finally got them a hold of them 10 days later, calling every day, like every hour on the hour, because I had 10 people out on the road. And what they told me is that we were put into risk because we grew too fast, and that if all of our clients disputed the charges, would we be able to cover the cost? Now, I will say, I called up American Express, and I'm 18 years in business. And I called up American Express because I had a direct account with them early on. And I told them what had happened, and they said, oh, Mrs. Palker, your account is just suspended. We'll have it open in 24 hours. And they said, as long as we approve the money, it could be $1 or it could be $100 less than $1 billion, and they guarantee the money. So just as we start to come out of this, you know, there's going to be some very big shifts and changes going from 0 to hopefully 60. And just, I would double check all of your financial relationships and what the risk management is, because it was not a fun experience. And I will tell you, there is a lot of credence to having a good accountant and a good lawyer, because I went after them and I will never do business with First Data again. And I was compensated significantly for that little trick they pulled.
Yeah. Wow. Now that's a story I haven't heard, but I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, James, a question for you related. What has Impact done anything in evaluating, their website, their updating that, or better marketing? What can you share about that as things you've learned from the pandemic?
Yeah, Tom, we've pivoted. We did a big pivot to virtual, of course, which I think we found it's like running in sand, right? We're still getting the exercise, but we're not getting very far. And that's been a challenge for us because resources are reduced, as I think everybody probably on this call is experiencing, and we've got to do more work for less money. And so how do we kind of take a look at that differently? And so a couple things that we've done, we've really gone out there and tried to become more thought leaders in different areas, especially as it revolves around virtual, because that's where we had our big pivot. And then the marketing kind of supported that initiative. I think our focus was that, and as we come out of this, hopefully sooner rather than later, I think our assumption was that tie-in, that hybrid approach for the live events and the virtual events will be kind of the new norm, and the associations will likely tier, if you're in person, you can pay this amount and get access to everything. And if you're virtual, maybe you don't get that full, but it'll be a revenue stream that I think will be valuable to the associations. I wonder, and what I can't get my head around is, after 9/11, you could no longer go shop at airport malls. And so how did they adjust to that? How did retail adjust to that inside of the airport malls? I think for us, what I found is as we continue to talk to our clients about strategy for 2021 spend and what that might look like, what I'm finding is that giving them kind of traditional look at what we've done for decades in the rearview mirror is just not going to be the same moving forward. And they're not very interested in kind of show me what your creative physical solution is, right? We don't think it's going to be that anymore. We may have a 20 by 30 space with a large table in the middle that's just for networking, that is all with protected materials alongside of it. So I think as we kind of focus about what we've learned, it's really about what is next for our industry. And I don't know that there's an answer to that yet. I think that a day is a week in today's time, and we're learning so much as we go. But I don't think that we're ever going to get back to a place where we were 5 months ago. I think it's going to be very different. I think our industry is going to look different. I think how we approach the strategy for our clients, our clients still have to fill that sales funnel through the event channel. So there's still going to be that requirement. And I think there's still always going to be a face-to-face requirement. But how we do that, I think it's going to be vastly different. And I've not heard anything yet from our industry that is kind of out there leading the charge in what and how events will come back. I think there's this hope that the snowstorm will be over at some point and we'll all funnel back into these large convention centers. And I just don't know if that's going to be true for the next few years at least. So what are we doing to be able to do that? So our marketing efforts and our strategy with our clients has really been focused on trying to understand kind of the development of our industry and how we can best fit into that. And I believe the hybrid approach is part of that, but the physical solution that we're all accustomed to is going to look very, very different moving forward. And I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's really good insight. Marty, are you able to talk to us now?
Should be. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Go ahead if you wanted to share something.
I guess I was earlier. It was about the banks, and I just felt like we changed banks as well. I felt like a number of different people that I talked to in our industry and other industries had a very difficult time getting any kind of PPP loan through the larger banks, right? The Chase banks and the Bank of Americas and whatnot. And I think similar to what you were mentioning about Classic changing, it's very, I think that's one thing we realize as well, is it's all about the relationships, right? We even just changed our insurance because it was just a better relationship, right? And I feel like times like this, you know who's going to be a go-getter, you know who's going to break their back to get you the information you need or to be there when you call. And I think that's something that, we've always done for our clients, but I think it's interesting that when you're able to switch whatever kind of relationship you have because somebody does a better job at the service side, it just reinforces the fact that we're all here for a reason, right? We all do that. I'm sure we're all similar in that respect, that we all give our customers the best service possible. And I think the fact that you see people willing to switch is kind of a sign that we're all doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, it's we all need to support our we need to support you. From Classic needs to support you, and you need to support your clients. And without a good support from even banks or insurance companies, that puts things in jeopardy with client relationships.
Right.
So
real quick, Carly, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. I guess it's kind of a broad question, because one thing that I see, we're talking about relationships, touch on the banking, that's huge. You got to have a great relationship with your bank. We do have a great relationship with our banker. We were the first PPP loan that he did. So it's really important that you take those guys out to lunch every now and then, just as an FYI, right? It's not just them taking you, it's you taking them, especially right now. But what I've started focusing on is that, as we all know, that the large events, we don't have any large stuff really till March, any big shows. We're sitting here crossing our fingers for a SHOT Show, but when you're only allowing 1,000 people into in events in Vegas, and you have 58,000 people coming in for SHOT Show, I have a feeling that's not going to happen. Same way for IPPE, big show in Georgia, right? So, I don't know if that's going to happen because the international. But with that said, I'm in Cincinnati, so Cincinnati's not a big convention town. And I did something, and if you guys are in smaller areas, something you might want to do is I'm looking at going to the convention center's website and saying, what events do they have coming up, right? Do they have anything on their books whatsoever, on their calendars in the next few months, even into first quarter 2021? They don't have anything. So I'm like going, how can I get on the ground floor of doing something that's a little different, and that I can help maybe bring stuff to Cincinnati? So I think the small stuff's going to come back before the big stuff. We're seeing that because of them just limiting, the convention centers. The IX Center, which is in Cleveland, actually shuttered its doors. Which sucks. Management company went out of business. So what I'm doing with another events person that has some connections within the city, I want to start working with them to see if they're targeting any smaller events and going after smaller shows and see if they can bring those to Cincinnati. Because I think just the ones that have the huge attendance isn't gonna happen. So if I can do something even to bring stuff to Cincinnati, to where I can be I want to be the person they come to for rental stuff, right? If people are coming in, again, I'm just trying to think of different ways that I can, use some of my connections and look and see what shows are going to be happening, and see if you can get a hold of that list. Or work with the show and see if there's a way that you can, be their supplier for those shows. But again, it's just another open door. You're hoping that it doesn't get slammed in your face, that you can find some revenue coming out of it.
yeah, no, thanks. Laura, you had a comment?
So to that point, I went through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, again, just before COVID. But what it did allow me to be is to participate. They've developed a Goldman Sachs Voices campaign. And every month I've been in front of congressmen, in front of and Kevin, to your point that you had put out there, is the senators, the congressmen, the legislators, and basically speaking to them about 3 points. And they really came forward in a report that went out by the Joint Meeting Council. The Joint Meeting Council specifically spoke about the business events, and a lot of our trade shows are B2B. as being needing to be reclassified into a economic development category rather than a live events industry. So I spoke to Congressman Swazi this morning about that, about looking at how critical it was for trade shows to the economic recovery post-COVID, one. Two is I also spoke to him, I'm seeing on LinkedIn and Facebook where people are trying to go and get jobs so they can put food on the table, and the employers are asking them on where's their master's degree. Meanwhile, they've got their masters at many skills. And so I related that to the congressman, as it was, many of you would have remembered when the military came home, that here were these highly skilled individuals and they had problems with job placement. So I said, we need to have a gap plan that's going to be able to understand the skill sets, the extraordinary skill sets of our people, so that they can find work in between today and the day that we can open larger shows. And three is even a skills training, because what's come up for me is, what are we going to do when all of a sudden, you know, the show wants to go on and all our people shifted? Well, we've got to be able to fill that talent pipeline, because you can't just hire a temporary worker to do our work.
Yeah.
The last thing that I'll say is that you know, we need to start a lobbying campaign to the top 100 shows in the United States, because what's come up for me, and I don't know about the tenure of the rest of you, but I suspect we're very close. I've been in this business for over 30 years, and there are solutions. We can give them a gap plan book to show management, and we can show them different ideas on how they can go live regionally and at the smaller level, Carla, as you're saying. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, we were doing 2 or 3, you know, tractor trailers, fitting them out for Symbol Technologies and Computer Associates a month. I remember, you know, one of our factories is doing a tailgate trade show. I remember for the franchise show, we used to just get a trailer. We used to go in and set up, you know, 30, 40, 50 booths, pack them all down, put them in the trailer, take it to the next show. And there's no reason why that can't be done, and sanitize them when they go in, sanitize them when they go out. Plus you've got the GBAC certification. So we just have to, a lot of people that I'm talking about are so stunned by what's happened by this pandemic to our livelihood, to our business, that we just need to open up the space to create, because that's what we do best.
Right, exactly.
And the thing, I mean, we've got the best minds in the country that are in our industry. And probably like most of you, I don't want to go be a human resource director. I don't want to be a marketing manager. I'm in the trade show business. It's in my blood. It's what I do best. It's what lights me up. I get hooked on the adrenaline, and that's just the way it is. So, you know, I think that Joint Meeting Council report gave a clear plan and a pathway for us, but our industry is so fragmented that we've got to find a way to come together and be the voice. And we have to get ourselves out of this live events classification, because we're critical to economic development.
I think that this is probably a great topic for one of the topics for our next meeting. If the group doesn't have any other comments, I'd like to move on to the next topic. So if anybody else had anything to add to what we just talked about.
I'm going to add one thing, Tom. I just want to add one thing. Just internally about our business, all products aside, relationships aside, all of that kind of stuff. The thing that has just stood out to me, and really from the beginning, and it was through the painful process of quite frankly, painful and emotional process of having to separate ourselves from a lot of employees, right? And that a lot of us have been through that, and it stunk. But for our business, the probably the one thing I've learned is the value of Swiss Army knives. And what I mean by that is those people within your organization that are multi-tools. And shame on me. Many of them I didn't even realize that they had other tools that applied to different avenues within our business. And so, I encourage a lot of people when I talk to them is, look at the staff that they have and really look to identify the skill sets that are in each individual person, regardless of what their title is right now, because as we build out of this and come out of this, there's an opportunity for every single organization to be so much stronger and so much more diversified internally, as well as externally. But in order to be as well diversified externally, really emphasize and look at the skill sets that you have coming into your office doors or on your Zoom screens every single day. That's been a real profound thing for me, anyways, as it relates to our business.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, just to jump in on that. So I'm, a trade show designer for 10 years, and I have a background in industrial design, so I knew some graphic work, I knew some assembling portfolios, assembling presentations, but I never really utilized that in terms of creating a really good rendering for a trade show exhibit. But coincidentally, before, right after college, I was actually selling TVs at a Sony store. And, I like sales, and it helped me out, getting on the call with the salesperson to, help sell a product. But in terms of, being a multi-tool, I jumped back into that, and I actually went selling infrastructure development products like these here. And I actually went restaurant to restaurant saying, hey, we can help you out, we can do this. And something that I learned was I was able to use more designer speak and brand language information on a sales level that you don't traditionally see in a trade show environment. And that was a really nice learn. And I can now talk to salespeople with that language and say, hey, if you talk about this, that will help you out going forward.
Right.
So I just want to throw that in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. I think cross training is probably the wave of the future, and it'll benefit everybody. All right, let's move on. The next topic is, what have you learned that you really don't need? Debbie, you're at the top of my screen, sitting parking next to me, so I'm going to throw that at you and see what your opinion is.
Good afternoon, everybody. That's a really good question, because I have really dove into educating myself about everything that's been happening, because I feel like we have to be the voice and the reason for the customers, because they need to come to us for those resources. So I don't know if I really have a true answer to that.
Yeah, I think I was kind of putting you on the spot because I was writing some notes down prior to the meeting, and I was trying to think of things from a sales perspective or even from a marketing perspective that might apply, and all my notes come back to probably more operationally in this, and so I was hoping you'd just come out with this revelation that I couldn't think of, but I appreciate.
Wish I could, Tom. Being in sales, that's probably not my core background, so I'm able to answer that.
No, it's I think that there's some obvious ones that I wrote down, but anybody want to jump in and tell me what they learned they really don't need? It could be from the top looking down saying, I don't need this, or my company doesn't need this, or even from a sales perspective, maybe there's tools that you're required to use or you're using that really aren't effective now. It's changing because of our changing environment. Anybody want to jump in on that? Am I seeing any hands? Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everyone. I think what we've realized really over time that we have a very large production facility, and what we've been seeing really primarily over the years is that we're doing less and less in-house custom production. And so we don't really need that large space that we have, and we're looking for ways to make better use to utilize that space because of, you know, the shift to hybrid and using the portable modular exhibits. So I guess one of our things is we don't need more storage space because we're not utilizing our production capabilities. While we have a separate storage space, that's what we've been finding. You know, and especially with the switch now going to these virtual events, I think we're going to need less and less of that. And Carla, thank you for sharing about having companies come into your organization. It is something that we also have pitched to some of our clients, but a lot of them are extremely fearful to let anybody inside anybody else's offices right now. And that's going to continue, at least with some of my clients, through the end of the year. So that's a struggle for us because we would love to have people come in. And I wrote down a lot of great notes, and based on your experiences, thank you.
Any other comments on that? What have you learned that you really don't need? You know, if I'm not going to get some participation here, I'm going to pick on somebody soon. So no one turn off their screens. Yeah, James, go ahead.
I just would reiterate what Lisa said. I mean, I think that what we've identified, I'm an old school guy. I like to be in a room with people. I like to be in a room with the team. I like to get everybody. Now we're global across multiple offices, but I think what I've identified, and I think what we've identified, is maybe we don't need all of the offices that we have, office spaces, we could have shared space, so I think coming out of this, we were able to still get work done virtually, which is something I've always been a little resistant on. I have remote workers, but at the same time, I do prefer everybody to kind of be in the office. What I've found is those folks that are motivated by the invisible hand are going to be motivated to do their work, whether they're sitting in their living room or they're sitting in conference room 5, right? And so coming out of this, I think we're renegotiating leases and looking at ways to kind of move our physical footprint down a little bit. That's one, because we're not going to have as much staff, but two, because I just don't think we need that person have that dedicated office all the time. If somebody needs to use my office,
oh, we're losing you a bit, James. You're cutting in and out. Looks like we got a. You're frozen.
Let me echo, while he reconnects, let me echo one thing he's saying. I mean, one thing we've recognized is the same type of thing is we don't necessarily need. And it's not just really even warehouse spaces. Some of it is even the office space. The office space needs to be there, don't get me wrong, but we've recognized that through this being forced into this scenario that we're all in now, and our communication tools that we have currently, our PMs are a great example. Most of our PMs don't necessarily need to be here every day. And I, for one, was fearful of that entire thought process, right? And they have become far more productive, which sort of surprised me, if I'm being honest, in the situation that they're in now. And they don't necessarily have to have a dedicated cubicle here every day. They come in when they've got a project shipping or they need to have a meeting or whatnot. And also because of things like Zoom and Teams and whatnot, I don't need to wait till a show, or I don't need to wait until I fly into a city to necessarily meet with a lot of other people. You can have a meeting typically within 3 days now, and get on someone's schedule and be able to have, even if it's just 15 or 20 minutes with people, which has been fantastic. And part of it is I think we all kind of want to commiserate and understand what's going on, but you don't necessarily have to be on a plane or be in your office every single day to be ultimately productive.
Right. No, that's good. So we've heard from the Northeast, from the Midwest, from the Upper Midwest. Susan, do you have anything you'd like to add into your perspective from the Southwest?
And that's a, hello, Tom. Hello, everyone. That's a valid point. Texas has been open for business, and I have several clients that they're already planning their shows. One is in late January that we're doing a 20 by 30. If all goes well, it's going to be here in Dallas, along with another company that's already planning 3 shows first quarter. The challenges that we face is you know, where you travel from and the restrictions and where your corporation is located dictates if someone can travel to your event and what's going to happen, which has changed everything. So we're planning as is, and if we need to make changes, we will. I did in a past job sell virtual events along with live trade shows. So that actually helped me out because I'm used to the virtual scene. It's not as face-to-face. It will never replace that. And Carla, you added so much great information about having the trade show within an office environment, which I'm going to recommend to a client. But we have to just pivot and think what we could do next. I could have actually used office space. I work from home. I had a client that exhibit house here in Dallas just closed down, and they were looking to store about 4,000 pounds of trade show items. So I could have used someone's space there. But again, I feel like it's based on the pockets of the United States and the regions on what is going on. I will be attending the Together Expo October 23rd here in Dallas, and to see what precautions are taking, getting feedback for attendees. Tom, I believe you'll be there. So
I'll address that.
Kevin.
Unfortunately, the show's actually just today been moved to January.
Oh, okay. I haven't even checked my email on that. Okay.
It went out to the exhibitors first, and then the press release will be released later today. But
okay.
It was the primary driver, honestly, was with all the advocacy that's going on right now, and sort of the lack of motion, if you will, in Congress. It was primarily out of a respect for the companies that are involved, that would be exhibiting or be attending, that are sort of up in limbo right now as to, even though 10 by 10s were largely complimentary and whatnot, I think they're trying to be respectful of that everybody's kind of up in the air right now, waiting to see what's going to happen in Congress.
Sure.
So they just pushed it out, just went out, but when it does happen, it's still going to be in Dallas, and to your point, it'll be a great opportunity to. I was at Orlando and participated, and it really is shines a nice bright light on exactly what we all know
Good.
We can do, and just continually getting that out in front of the public.
I feel very fortunate because I have a couple of clients that were designated essential businesses from the get-go, and they're having a banner year, and they're so ready to get out and meet with people, and it's just, they're frustrated. I have clients that are frustrated. Virtual is great. You're still in front of your clients, potential clients, but it doesn't have the impact that face-to-face does.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. We're planning as is for the first quarter and see how it goes. But you all added so much information that I can run with, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Susan. Well, let's move on. Since we've got limited time, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So the last thing we want to talk about is, how are you preparing for a resumption of business once shows begin to open up again? And Derek, like your perspective from an AE standpoint.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, the thing I'm really focused on right now is kind of standardizing our offerings moving forward, knowing that some of the budgets may be cut moving into the beginning of next year. and knowing that having some standard offerings available will allow us to be flexible and be able to react quickly to what we're seeing as ever-changing needs. And then also being able to incorporate some of the technology on more of a standard thing that introduces people to that element for going more hybrid in a world that they're not currently super comfortable with. So that's kind of my all-encompassing focus right now.
Okay. Royal, what about from your standpoint?
I think the biggest thing is just keeping in contact even more with all of your clients, just to reassure them that we're going to be there when all of this is over and behind us. And just keep hitting on the virtual. It's taken quite some time, as everyone knows, for clients to come around to the virtual piece of it, just because there is that hope that this will be behind us sooner rather than later. But everyone's realizing that the hybrid piece is going to be there regardless, no matter what, whether 2021 into 2022. But just constantly reaching out to them, sending information to them, updates. I don't think there can ever be too much of that, especially now, because obviously everyone's getting bombarded from everyone else to do virtual and everything along those lines. So that's kind of the biggest piece. And clients are slowly coming around. They're understanding it and realizing the value of the virtual piece, not just as part of a trade show event, but as a huge sales tool for their sales force to use. They're realizing if all it took was a website for a salesperson to bring their client to, well, then what would be the need of live events or anything else? They need something more interactive and immersive in the virtual world. So, that's kind of the biggest piece I can offer. My advice right now is just reassure your clients that you're going to be there. That's what they need to know. They need to know that you've got all these solutions for them, whether it's virtual, whether it's PPE, whatever we've had to pivot on and replace, help them see, how they replace, what their go-to market strategy is and replace that revenue that they were getting from their live events.
Yeah, no, it's good insight. So typically fourth quarter, Debbie, I'll get to you in just a second. I'm just going to make a quick comment. Typically fourth quarter, we're reaching out to our clients because it's the old adage, use it or lose it on the marketing dollars. Are we in that use it or lose it scenario now because of COVID and marketing budgets being cut, or are people going to be focusing on that? I don't know. Does anybody have an opinion on that? Is that
depends on the segment? I know we have definitely seen government spending. It's starting to dump right now, which is a good thing. But other segments, in working with your guys' clients alongside of you, there are other segments that policy doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, Debbie, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to mention another thing that we've been doing and we see that's brought a lot of value is doing webinars, just talking about potential options that they can consider that they might not have for their marketing face-to-face.
Yeah,
Ways
that's
to connect
really
and has brought value.
Yeah, I think that's a real proactive approach that your clients want and appreciate. They're kind of wandering around, not knowing where to go either. And if you can provide some direction, that makes you a very valuable partner for them.
Yep.
So, Bill Finicky, I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Just before you close up, though, I want to say something.
Okay, Bill, I just was curious on what you're seeing and hearing, or what your plans are once shows begin again.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what Royal has said. We're almost being smothering with our clients here. We're in touch with everyone on a weekly basis, our big clients, on a personal side once a month. It's really just trying to let them know we're here whenever they need anything. We're here to help. We're being in New York where everything's still very restricted. You can't travel outside of the state without someone giving you a shady eye. It's tough. Clients can't travel. They can't do these things, but we're just trying to be ready for them to do something.
Yeah, I think what's really important, and I'll get to you in a second, Kevin. I know you have a comment, but I've talked to a lot of people who, have the attitude, well, I've got to stay in front of my clients because you don't want to go dark for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, and then call them up and say, hey, we're ready to go. Oh, how about you? And
Right.
all the while they've been getting solicited from your competitors who have stayed in touch and offered solutions, and then you're the Johnny come lately that's not going to get the business anymore. So I think that's smothering is a good way of putting it, because you have to stay in touch. So Kevin,
I was just going to say before it's over, and this is a total advocacy plug, but something that if you guys all write this down, and you've probably seen it over and over again, but I think it's important, especially if you find yourself in a position where you may be able, or you have a desire to communicate with local officials within your state. Write down $1.1 trillion. Write down $950 billion. And then write down $130 billion. The 1.1 trillion is what this industry drops to the GDP annually. That sticks. They listen to money, right? But where they start to really listen then is the 950 billion. That is revenue generated for small businesses off of live events annually. And 80% of the businesses in the country are small businesses. So it's impactful. And then the $130 billion, that's direct tax revenue. And you can break that up into two numbers. 51 billion, directly state and local tax revenue. 79 billion, that's federal level revenue. So you think about airline taxes, hotel taxes, restaurant taxes, taxi taxes, all of that kind of stuff. Those are the numbers that stick. So if you are advocating, or you're having a conversation, or you're in a chamber meeting with people, and you happen to have even local city officials there, those are the numbers that they care about. And I'm not saying they don't care about us otherwise, but unfortunately, those are the numbers that get their attention. So I always just encourage people, keep those in your hip pocket, because they're real. They're backed up stats, and we're seeing some impact by sharing that over the last 8 to 10 weeks with congressional leaders. That's my commercial.
well, thank you. No, I mean, it's very impactful numbers. This week when you heard about the airlines starting to lay off 30,000 employees, I was thinking to myself, I know it's a selfish thought, and I'm thinking, my God, there's 10 times that many people in the live event industry that's been affected, and we can't even get an audience with these Congress people, and they're worried about 30,000 airline employees, and I was like, this really stinks. But anyway, that's my personal opinion. So Laura, go ahead.
Just one thing that's really important is, everyone needs to talk to their local representatives, their state representatives, and get behind, because the trade show industry, while it's the engine for the economy, we're rolled up into live events and concerts. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to segment ourselves and prove the importance based on these numbers that Kevin just said. But it means getting a voice. It means really calling out the message. So if you have the opportunity in any way, shape, or form, make the call, spend the time to get on the Zoom meetings, be in their face over and over and over again. And, and then we can possibly work to get some movement on a larger scale, because it's critical to our economic development that we stay alive.
Thank you. It's words of wisdom, and we all need to be advocating, to our politicians, whether local or national. At this point, is anybody, Tom Norris, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you. If you have anything to add, I just try.
I would just have to reiterate some of the other things that were said about staying in front of people. I've got actually a client that's sitting there with on Kevin's dock that we're going to be doing a refurb and some other things for her. But she sent me an email last Friday saying, hey, what do you feel about what's going on with trade shows because she's looking at signing up for a show in April. And I told her to wait till after this meeting after I'd heard what everybody else had said. So keeping in front of people and just making sure that they realize that you're still there is paramount in maintaining the relationship, but also in generating that new business and getting ready for 2021.
Right. Right. So at this point, anybody else comment that we need to bring up at this point? I'm looking for hands, no hands. So the next meeting will be the first Tuesday of November. And we do have a ton of topics that you've already sent in that will, but again, from this meeting, anything that comes up in your mind that you'd like to discuss in a future meeting, please send it to me and Kevin, and we'll certainly bring it up. But I thought this was really great. I thought there was a lot of good dialogue. There's a lot of good ideas shared. This is exactly what we were hoping to accomplish in this. We've all been on a lot of Zoom calls and either heard product pitches or psychologists or, some kind of, help. But this was really good to get everybody together and share ideas. And so I really appreciate everyone's participation and hope to see everybody for our next meeting. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be sending out some reminders, next meeting invite. We'll get it on the calendar. And but before that, stay safe and we'll talk to everybody soon. Kevin, anything you wanted to add?
No, Carla's got her hand up, but I think I know she wants to talk about the date for the next one. We may want to look at it. Might shift a day or two because it happens to be election day.
Everybody's going to vote by mail, aren't they?
All right, time to end the meeting.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Take care, everybody.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.